I was still holding the bouquet when my life snapped in half. You know those cheap graduation bouquets they sell outside the arena? 12 red roses wrapped in thin plastic that squeaks every time you shift your fingers. I'd spent the last of my paycheck on them that morning, after finishing a night shift stacking boxes at the warehouse. Third job, third year, all for her. My name is Ethan Miller, and for 6 years my world had been built around one idea: get my wife through medical school, and everything would finally make sense. That was a story I told myself at 3 a.m. over burnt coffee, when my eyes felt like sandpaper and my legs ached from double shifts. It's temporary, I'd whisper. Once Claire's a doctor, it'll all be worth it. I believed that right up until the moment she pointed at another man and introduced him as her husband. The auditorium was buzzing, families shouting names, kids running the aisles, proud parents taking blurry photos. I got in there early, still in my wrinkled button-down from the office job. The sleeves rolled up so the grease stains from the warehouse didn't show as much. Her parents were in the same row, 3 seats away, pretending I wasn't there. That wasn't new. On stage, rows of graduates in black gowns and colored hoods waited their turn. When they called Dr. Claire Hartman, the crowd exploded. Her mom shot up, clapping like she'd just won the lottery. Her dad whistled. I yelled too, loud, ignoring the sideways glance he gave me, like my voice didn't belong in their celebration. Claire walked across the stage like she was floating. Blonde hair perfectly curled under the cap, lipstick on point, smile wide enough to blind the first row. She didn't look tired. She didn't look like someone who'd spent nights crying over exams and debt. She looked like someone who had already stepped into a new life and locked the door behind her. They handed her the diploma, flashed a photo, and then it was done. Just like that. 6 years of my life in a 30-second walk. After the ceremony, everyone poured out into the lobby, a sea of gowns and cameras and perfume. I pushed through bodies, the roses crinkling in my grip, searching for her. I spotted her near the giant university seal on the wall, surrounded by people, her classmates, her parents, some faculty. And standing right beside her, laughing like he owned the room, was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, sharp suit, dark hair styled like he lived in front of a mirror. No family badge, no tired eyes. He looked rested, comfortable, the opposite of me. Claire saw me. Our eyes met for a second. There should have been something there: relief, pride, gratitude, anything. Instead, she gave me a quick, tight smile, the kind you give a stranger who just held the door open. My stomach went cold. I stepped closer, forcing my way through a circle. Claire, I called out. Hey. Her mom turned first, her face twisting just slightly like she'd stepped in something. Oh, Ethan, you made it. I made it. I repeated, my voice a little too loud. I've been here since 8. Claire touched the man's arm lightly, a casual little tap that felt way too familiar. Then she turned, her smile now bright and polished for the audience. Everyone, she said, I want you to meet someone very important. I straightened my shoulders, shifted the bouquet in my hands. Okay, here it comes. The moment. The public thank you. All the nights, the missed birthdays, the third job. It was finally going to mean something. I imagine her saying, this is my husband, Ethan. He carried me through all of this. And maybe kissing me in front of everyone. Maybe, for once, her parents would look at me like I was enough. Claire lifted her hand and pointed. Not at me. At him. This is my husband, she said, and I swear the world tilted. This is Ryan Cole. He's the reason I made it. The sounds of the lobby blurred into white noise. Cameras clicking, people talking. None of it reached me. The only thing I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Ryan smiled and wrapped an arm around her waist like it had always belonged there. Proud of you, babe, he said, leaning in to kiss her temple. Her parents laughed. Her mom clasped her hands to her chest. We're so lucky you came into her life, she gushed. She blossomed after you two met. Blossomed. I just stood there, clutching the roses, so hard the thorns pierced the wrapping and dug into my palm. A drop of blood slid down my wrist, but the sting felt far away, like it belonged to someone else. No one looked at me. Not Claire, not her parents, not her friends. I was a ghost in the middle of my own story. Then, almost as an afterthought, Claire glanced over my shoulder, not even at my face. Oh, and this is Ethan, she added lightly. He helped out back when I first started school. Helped out, like I was an outdated scholarship. My throat tightened. Back when you first started? I echoed. Claire, I'm your... She cut me off, her smile stretching, but her eyes going cold. Ethan, not now, okay? Let's not make a scene. Her voice was low, edged with a warning. We'll talk later. Ryan looked me up and down, taking in the cheap shirt, the tired eyes, the discount bouquet. He gave me a polite little nod, the kind you give a rideshare driver. Hey man, appreciate everything you did for her, he said. She told me you were helpful. Helpful. My mind started flipping through memories like someone tearing pages out of a book. 3 uniforms hanging on the same hook. Sleeping in my car between shifts. Counting coins at the kitchen table so we could cover her textbooks. Her saying, just a little longer, Ethan. Once I'm a doctor, we'll finally breathe. The air in my lungs felt thick, like the room was filling with smoke. I could have yelled. I could have thrown the roses at her feet, demanded answers, exposed every sacrifice in front of every person there. Instead, I went very, very still, because in that frozen second, something strange happened. The hurt didn't disappear, but it sharpened, turned into something clear and cold. I stopped seeing Claire as my wife and started seeing her as what she had become, a woman who was willing to rewrite history while I was still standing in it. She had just erased me in public. Fine. She wanted a new story? She had no idea I'd been quietly stacking the chapters of my own. I straightened, wiped the blood from my hand onto my shirt, and forced my voice to come out steady. What I did next, I'd later realize, is the moment everything changed. I stepped forward, right into the little circle they'd made without me, and opened my mouth, ready to make sure none of them would ever forget my name again. I didn't speak that day. Not yet. I thought I would. My mouth was ready, my lungs full, but the words jammed somewhere between fury and disbelief. Instead, I turned around and walked out of that auditorium like a man whose bones were suddenly made of glass. If I had opened my mouth then, it would have been pure rage. I needed clarity first. Answers. Proof. Something to explain how my wife, managed to replace me while I was still paying her tuition bills. The answers came faster than I expected. 3 days later, the house felt different. Not messy. Claire hated mess. No, it felt empty. Like she had already unplugged herself from our life and left only her shadow behind. Her perfume no longer lingered in the hallway. Her favorite mug, white ceramic with a gold stethoscope design, was gone. Even the framed photo of us at her white coat ceremony, the one she insisted we hang near the door, gone. Not replaced, just removed, like an infection she cut out of her environment. That should have been enough to tell me something was wrong. But I wasn't ready to accept the obvious. My phone buzzed while I was reheating leftover pasta, my dinner for the week, because I was broke from her graduation expenses. The notification was from our shared bank account. Only it wasn't shared anymore. Transferred. $8,750. Claire Hartman. Nearly every penny I'd been saving. My jaw locked. She didn't even send a message. Just a clean extraction, like she was withdrawing organs from a sedated patient. That was the moment denial died. Not the moment she announced another man as her husband. Not the whispers I'd ignored for months. Not even the way she changed passwords on accounts she swore were nothing to worry about. No, this was the moment. Money doesn't lie. People do. I went upstairs, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. I didn't know what I was looking for, but my instincts dragged me to her side of the closet. The space where her shoes used to be was empty. Her dress is gone. The jewelry box I gave her on our second anniversary? Gone. My brain tried to protect me with excuses. Maybe she's decluttering. Maybe she's staying with her parents. Maybe she's planning a surprise. But the truth was sitting right there on the closet floor, mocking me. One single item remained. A torn envelope. Claire was meticulous. She didn't leave trash. She didn't leave mistakes. But this was a mistake she couldn't vacuum out of existence before running off to her new fantasy life. I crouched, picked it up, and unfolded what was left inside. Plane tickets. 2. Booked months ago. Claire Hartman and Ryan Cole. Destination. Maui. My throat tightened. My pulse hammered so hard it blurred my vision. While I was juggling night shifts and double shifts, she was planning a tropical getaway with her new husband. And then, as if God wanted to twist the knife, something slipped out from between the pages, something small and square. A Polaroid. Claire, sitting on Ryan's lap, both wearing swimsuits, her hand on his chest, his mouth at her neck. Her smile wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It wasn't the version of Claire I thought I married. It was a smile I never got. The room tilted. My knees buckled, and I sat on the floor beside the evidence of my own stupidity. You know what hurts more than betrayal? Realizing it was happening right in front of you. You were just too exhausted to see it. The late study nights? She wasn't alone. The group projects? They weren't about medicine. The sudden interest in fitness classes? She was training for a new life. A life I wasn't in. I clenched the Polaroid so hard the edges cut into my skin. Blood again. Always blood. Funny how betrayal feels physical, like your body refuses to let you ignore it. My breathing slowed. My thoughts sharpened. The rage didn't disappear. It crystallized into something colder and far more dangerous. This wasn't some emotional affair. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a mistake. This was premeditated. Claire didn't just cheat. She replaced me. And now I understood something I hadn't seen at that ceremony. I wasn't supposed to discover anything. I was supposed to fade quietly out of her narrative. A footnote, an assistant, a stepping stone. But she miscalculated one thing. I don't disappear. Not quietly. Not ever. And if Claire thought Maui was going to be her paradise, she had no idea what kind of storm she just invited in her perfect little life. I didn't call her. I didn't text, didn't email, didn't send some pathetic "we need to talk" message. She made it clear. I was supposed to be the background character who quietly exited stage left. So I waited. If there's one thing 3 jobs teach you, it's patience. You learn how to run on fumes, how to let pain simmer without boiling over. You learn how to bide your time. She came back on a Tuesday. I heard the key in the lock at 7:42 p.m., exactly the time she used to come home from study group. Funny how that schedule stuck, even with a new husband in the picture. The door swung open, and Claire walked in like she still owned everything inside these walls. Tight blazer, perfect makeup, heels clicking against the floor. She looked around, frowned slightly, like she had expected me to be gone. Instead, she found me sitting at the kitchen table. The Polaroid was on the table in front of me. The torn plane tickets. A printed screenshot of the bank withdrawal. Beside them, the cheap graduation bouquet, now wilted, petals sagging like they'd given up on pretending to be beautiful. "Hey," she said cautiously, closing the door behind her. "No hook, no keys, no, Iba." Just a flat greeting like I was her landlord asking about late rent. "You're home early. You still here." "I live here," I said. "Where else would I be?" She rolled her eyes, tossed her bag onto the counter, and exhaled loudly. "Okay, can we not start with the attitude? I'm exhausted. It's been a long day." "A long day," I repeated quietly. "Did they make you work extra hard at the clinic, or was it just a tough day, pretending I never existed?" Her gaze snapped to the table. She saw everything. The color drained from her face for half a second, just long enough to prove she did feel something. Then, like flipping a switch, she straightened, raised her chin, and slid back into that icy, calculated version of herself. "Oh," she said simply. "So you went through my things." "I went through my closet." I corrected. "You cleaned out your things." She shrugged. "I needed space." "For what?" I asked. "For Ryan." She didn't even flinch at his name. That hurt more than anything. "Look, Ethan," she said, crossing her arms. "You're overreacting." I laughed. I actually laughed. It came out sharp and ugly. Right. Totally. Most guys would be chill if they found out their wife introduced another man as her husband in front of hundreds of people. Might even send a fruit basket. She narrowed her eyes. "You're twisting this." I leaned forward, tapping the Polaroid with my finger. "Oh, help me untwist it then. Which part am I confused about? You sitting on his lap? The little vacation you two booked? Or the part where all our savings magically relocated into your new life fund?" Her mask slipped for a split second. Her lips curled. "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. You act like this is some crime. You knew we were having problems. We weren't having problems, I said slowly. You were having options. She rolled her eyes again, that mocking, dismissive eye roll she used when she wanted to make me feel small. This is exactly why I didn't want to talk to you yet. You get so emotional. You can't handle reality. Reality? I repeated. Reality is I worked myself half to death so you could chase this dream. Reality is I trusted you when you said we were a team. Reality is you used me as a stepping stone and then try to pretend I never existed because I don't match your shiny new doctor image. Her expression hardened. You think I owe you my whole life because you help with bills? She hissed. That's pathetic, Ethan. You sound desperate. There it was. The word she'd been holding. Desperate. I felt something inside me crack, but not in the way she expected. Not into pieces. It cracked open like a door. You're right, I said quietly. I did sound desperate. At graduation, standing there like a fool with flowers while you paraded your new husband. She winced, annoyed. It was a figure of speech, she snapped. You're taking everything so literally. Ryan understands where I'm going. He's in my league. We want the same future. You and your three-job martyr act. I slammed my hand on the table. The sound made her jump. Say it, I said, voice low. Say what you really mean. Say I was useful until I wasn't. Say I was convenient until someone richer, cleaner, easier came along. Say you climbed over me to get to him. Silence. Her jaw flexed. Then she smiled. Not soft. Not sorry. Cold. Triumphant. Fine, she said. You want honesty? You were necessary. For a while. You kept things paid. You made it possible for me to get where I needed to go. And now, she shrugged, like she was talking about old furniture. Now I'm there. I'm not going to apologize for outgrowing you. Outgrowing you. Like I was a pair of shoes. My fingers curled slowly into fists, then relaxed. For the first time, I saw her clearly, not as my wife, not as the girl I fell in love with, but as the woman sitting in front of me. Entitled, strategic, completely unbothered by the wreckage she'd left behind. Good, I said softly. I needed to hear you say that. She scoffed. So what now? You gonna cry? Beg? Threaten to tell everyone? No one will care, Ethan. They'll just see a bitter ex who couldn't keep up. I smiled, and that's when she finally looked nervous. Because I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging. I was calm. What happens now? I said, picking up the Polaroid and the tickets. Is that you're about to find out what a bitter ex with receipts and nothing left to lose actually looks like. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Ryan. And suddenly, the game wasn't just between me and her anymore. I didn't grab her phone. I wanted to. God, did I want to? One swipe, and I could have opened their messages, their photos, their private little fantasy world. But I already knew enough. I didn't need to watch the replay of every time she chose him over me. Instead, I picked up my keys. Where are you going? Claire demanded, like she suddenly cared where I existed. I shrugged on my jacket. To stop being useful, I said. Isn't that what you wanted? She scoffed. You're being childish. I learned it from my wife, I replied, and walked out before she could answer. The air outside was cold enough to bite through fabric. I didn't know where I was driving until I realized my car had basically taken me there on its own. The diner. The one that stayed open all night. The one I'd hit between jobs for cheap coffee and something that resembled food. The one where the waitress, Jenna, always called me Han and slipped me extra fries when she thought I looked particularly dead on my feet. It was half empty, flickering neon, the smell of burnt oil and syrup, old music from a jukebox that probably survived 3 owners. I slid into a booth by the window. Jenna took one look at me and didn't bother with the usual small talk. You look like you lost a fight, she said. Coffee. Yeah, I muttered. And whatever's hot, that doesn't come from a bottle. She brought coffee, a plate of something greasy, and then, without asking, sat opposite me for a second. So she said, who hurt you? It was almost funny how fast the answer came. My wife. Ah. She nodded like she'd heard that answer 100 times. She leave you? I stared at the steam swirling over the coffee. Not yet, I said, but she left the marriage a long time ago. I'm just catching up. The words started spilling out. Not everything, just enough for her to get the shape of it. The 3 jobs, the med school, the graduation announcement, the new husband. The plane tickets. The money. Jenna whistled low. Damn, she said. She didn't just bite the hand that fed her. She gnawed the arm off at the shoulder. I huffed out a humorless laugh. Yeah, something like that. Let me guess, she said, leaning back. You're thinking, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? How could she do this to me? I didn't answer, but my silence did it for me. Han, she said, voice softer now, you didn't make her this way. She chose it. Some people see loyalty as a gift. Some see it as a ladder. And once they're at the top, she shrugged, they forget who built the first steps. That's the thing, I muttered. She doesn't even feel guilty. She looked me in the face and basically said she outgrew me. Like I was a starter pack. The anger was there, sure, but underneath it, something heavier was squeezing my chest. Humiliation. Every memory was now double exposed. Her falling asleep on the couch, supposedly exhausted from studying? Was she texting him under that blanket? Those girls' nights that left her coming home late, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine? How many times had I kissed her forehead while she was mentally somewhere else, with someone else? The food sat untouched. I took a sip of coffee and felt nothing. My hands were shaking and not from caffeine. Why didn't I see it? I asked quietly. How do you miss something this big when it's happening in your own house? Jenna tilted her head. Because you were busy surviving, she said. People like her count on that. They know you're too tired to connect the dots. They're scattering. The truth of that burned. I thought about the version of me she fell in love with, or claimed to. The guy with dreams, with energy, who believed love was enough fuel to carry two people through anything. I traded that version for the man who showed up, who paid bills, who sacrificed. She didn't want the man who sacrificed. She wanted the prize he could never afford to be. My phone buzzed on the table. Claire, where did you go? We're not done talking. Another message. Don't do anything stupid, Ethan. Don't embarrass yourself. There it was again, her biggest fear. Not that she'd hurt me, not that she'd destroyed our marriage. Her fear was me making noise. I stared at her messages, thumb hovering over the screen. For a second, I imagined what I'd always done. Apologize for being too emotional, ask what she needed, try to salvage something from this wreck. Then something inside me finally snapped into place. I wasn't her assistant anymore. I wasn't her background character. I was the man she had deliberately underestimated. And no one is more dangerous than the person who has finally accepted he has nothing left to lose. I type one line back. You're right. We're not done. Not even close. I put the phone down and looked up at Jenna. Hey, I said. Random question. You know any good lawyers? Her eyebrows shot up. Then she smiled, slow and approving. Oh, she said. So that's the road you're taking. No, I said. That's just the first turn. Because if Claire wanted to build a new life on the ruins of mine, she was about to learn something very important. Foundations remember who poured them. And so does the man you tried to erase. I didn't sleep that night. My body lay in bed, but my head was nowhere near sleep. My thoughts paced like an animal that finally realized the cage door was open. Every time I blinked, I saw Claire's smug smile, heard her voice telling me she had outgrown me. Funny thing about people who think they've upgraded, they assume the past won't bother to follow them. By morning, I had a plan. Not a revenge fantasy. Not some impulsive blow-up. Something better. Something she'd never expect from the man she thought was too exhausted, too emotional, too useful to fight back. I grabbed my laptop and started digging into every document, transaction, and email she'd ever connected to our shared accounts. Claire forgot one crucial truth. Doctors may diagnose sickness, but paper trails diagnose betrayal. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Payments to a luxury condo rental. A shared Spotify account with a profile picture of her and Ryan. Matching sunglasses, matching tan. Credit card purchases from jewelry stores, restaurants, spas. All while I was eating cold pasta and falling asleep sitting up. Then I found something that made my bloodstream turn electric. A student loan application. Not ours. Hers. Signed with my name. My heart didn't just drop. It fell through the floor, hit the basement, and kept going. Claire hadn't just replaced me emotionally or financially. She'd forged my signature on federal documents. That wasn't betrayal. That was a felony. For a moment, I sat there, stunned, staring at the screen like maybe I was hallucinating. But the numbers didn't care about my shock. They were real. My name, my social, her lies printed in legal ink. My hand stopped trembling. I didn't feel weak anymore. I felt awake. Around noon, the doorknob rattled. Claire walked in without knocking, like she still owned the ground she walked on. Her heels clicked across the floor as she stepped into the kitchen, where I sat waiting. She didn't greet me. Typical. She went straight to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of sparkling water, and drank from it like she was rinsing the taste of guilt off her tongue. About last night, she said casually, as if we debated movie genres and not the corpse of our marriage. I think we both need to calm down. It's not the end of the world. I turned the laptop toward her. Open tabs. Highlighted documents. Bank transfers. The loan application. Seat. She blinked. Excuse me. Sit. I repeated, not raising my voice. She sat. Her eyes skimmed the screen. Her pupils widened. Her lips parted just slightly. For the first time since this nightmare began, Claire didn't look in control. What is this? She whispered. Oh, come on, I said. Don't insult both of us. You know exactly what it is. She swallowed. You went through my private files. No. Incorrecta. I went through her files. The ones you used to scam your way into a future with Ryan. She shot up from the chair. Don't call it a scam. You don't understand anything about. I slammed my palm on the table. She jumped. No more speeches. No more gaslighting. No more outgrowing me. I leaned forward. You forged my name on federal documents, Claire. That's not an affair. That's a crime. Her mouth opened and closed like she was drowning on dry land. This wasn't supposed to happen, she muttered. You weren't supposed to look there yet. Yet. That word was a confession. Ryan was helping me, she blurted. He said it was temporary. You were too slow, too stuck. I couldn't wait forever. You don't get it. I laughed. Cold. Quiet. I didn't get it because you weren't telling the truth. Not once. Not ever. She crossed her arms, chin raised like a gladiator who didn't realize she was unarmed. So what? You'll run to the police? You'll tell everyone? They won't believe some blue-collar martyr. I'm a doctor now. People listen to me. Not you. There it was. Her final delusion. Not love. Not guilt. Status. My job isn't to convince people, I said. My job is to file facts. And facts don't care about your title. The room went still. A different expression crossed her face. Not arrogance. Not irritation. Fear. Tiny, but real. But we can fix this, she said quickly. We can talk. We can figure something out. Maybe, I nodded. But not here. Her brows furrowed. Then where? I stood up, grabbed the printed files, and headed toward the door. At your graduation, I said. Her face whitened. No. Yes, I said. You erased me in public. Let's see how loud the applause is when I return the favor. She lunged for the papers, but I stepped back. She missed. You think you're the storm, I told her quietly. But storms don't bury foundations. And you built your life on top of the wrong man. Her voice cracked. Ethan, wait, don't do this. I already did, I said. You just haven't felt the aftershocks yet. And with that, I walked out. Not broken, not erased, awake, and very, very prepared. People think revenge happens in a single moment, a dramatic outburst, a punch, a scream, a slap. No, that's amateur work. Real revenge is slow, methodical, patient. It's the sound of silence moving towards someone who thinks they're safe. And Claire? She thought she was untouchable. The morning after I walked out with the documents, I made 3 phone calls. Each one set something in motion. The first was to a lawyer, Daniel Price, recommended by Jenna. Daniel didn't sound impressed. At first, he'd clearly heard every flavor of marital meltdown imaginable. But the moment I forwarded the forged loan application, his tone changed. You're not calling about a divorce, he said. You're calling about fraud. Yes, I replied. And your wife's a doctor now? Graduated last week. He whistled. She committed federal forgery before obtaining her license? Looks like it. Congratulations, he said dryly. You're holding a nuclear device. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to power. Not the emotional kind, the legal, irreversible kind. Claire didn't just betray me. She built her future on a crime with my signature. Daniel told me what to gather. Emails, statements, photos, timestamps. I already had most of it. Turns out when someone treats you like a stepping stone, they forget stones observe. Stones remember. The second call was to the university's administration. They were preparing an official alumni spotlight article highlighting Claire's inspirational journey from poverty to medicine. Poverty. They were selling my sacrifice as her heroic backstory. When the administrator answered, I introduced myself politely and offered a correction. Your feature story is missing a character, I said. The man who funded her entire education. The silence on the other end tasted delicious. Oh, they said, voice tightening, we weren't aware. You will be, I replied, and ended the call before they could recover. The third call was brief. The shortest one. I called Ryan. He answered on the second ring, voice smug and rehearsed. Claire told me you've been having a hard time accepting reality. I'm not calling for therapy, I interrupted. I'm calling to give you a heads up. He chuckled. About what? About the fact that aiding someone in federal financial fraud isn't considered romantic. Courts don't care who she loves. They care who helped her. Silence. Then, you don't know what you're talking about. You're right, I said calmly. But the Department of Education does. I hung up. Let the panic marinate. That afternoon, Claire showed up at the house like a hurricane trapped inside a lab coat. She slammed the door so hard the frame shook. What the hell did you do? She spat. I was sitting in the living room, calm, legs crossed, files neatly stacked beside me. Which part upset you? I asked. The lawyer? The school? Or losing the spotlight you haven't even posed for yet? You're ruining my career. I tilted my head. No, you ruined it. I'm just reading the instructions you left behind. She lunged toward the stack of documents, but I slid them out of reach. Hit me, I said quietly. Do it, please. Give me something physical to add to the report. She froze. Her rage calcified into caution. You think anyone will believe you? She hissed. I leaned forward. They don't have to believe me. They just have to examine the signatures. Her facade cracked. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said suddenly, voice soft, trembling, her final weapon. Sympathy. I laughed, not cruelly, just truthfully. You didn't hurt me, Claire. You tried to delete me. There's a difference. She sank into a chair like her legs finally betrayed her. I thought you'd never fight back, she whispered. I know, I replied. That's why this is working. She buried her face in her hands. For the first time, she seemed small. Not because I made her that way, but because she finally saw who she'd been standing on. You can't destroy me, she whispered. Destroy you? I echoed. Claire, I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to introduce you to the truth you wrote yourself. Her phone buzzed. Ryan again. She didn't answer. Her hand shook, and now she understood something she never calculated. A man who has already lost everything isn't afraid of losing more. She stood slowly, voice barely audible. What happens now? I gathered the documents, stood up, and met her eyes. Now, I repeated. Now the world starts hearing my side of the story. Her breath caught in her throat. Fear, disbelief, maybe both. And Claire, I added, opening the door. You might have outgrown me, but you sure as hell underestimated me. She didn't respond. She couldn't. Because earthquakes don't need applause. They speak in aftershocks. You know what's strange? When a storm finally breaks, the world doesn't explode, it goes silent. People think revenge feels like thunder, gunshots, fireworks. But the real power is quiet. It's the pause before impact, when everyone realizes they should have run sooner. That was the air around Claire. Silent. Heavy. Waiting. After I told her the world would hear my side, she didn't scream, didn't argue. She just stood there, staring at me like she was seeing a ghost she'd buried, only to find it still breathing. Good. Ghosts don't need permission to haunt. The next morning, Daniel, the lawyer, emailed me a packet that might as well have been a detonator. It included the draft of a formal complaint, complete with timestamps, attachments, and the forged documents. It was tidy, precise, beautiful. Claire expected emotion. She expected me to throw plates, shout at the sky, chase her, beg her, cry. What she got instead was paperwork. No scream echoes louder. I printed everything and placed it in a binder, the color she hated most. Neon orange. She once called it unprofessional. Funny how life loves irony. While I worked, Claire paced the house like the walls were closing in. She tried small talk first. Ethan, can we be rational about this? Click. Paper aligned. Hole punch pressed. I am. Then she tried guilt. You're jeopardizing my future. Punch. Staple. Smooth edges flattened. You forged my name. Then pity. I made mistakes. That, I said, sliding the last sheet into the binder, is the first true sentence you've said in weeks. She stomped away, slamming the bedroom door. If she expected me to chase her, she underestimated me again. Doors don't intimidate men who've had whole identities slammed in their faces. Around noon, her parents arrived. Unannounced. Of course. Her mother, Linda, charged into the living room like a prosecutor, her father, Harold, hovering behind her like a decorative coat rack. Ethan, Linda snapped. What is this nonsense Claire is telling us? Nonsense, I replied, flipping open the binder. Pick a page. Harold squinted like the words were trying to escape the paper. You're exaggerating. Claire would never. I pointed at the signature line. My name. Her handwriting. Tell me again what she'd never do. Linda's lips thinned. She said you threatened her. I raised an eyebrow. With what? Verbs. She had no answer. Only indignation, her favorite defense mechanism. You're doing this because you're bitter, she accused. Claire worked hard. Claire, I cut in, worked hard at pretending she didn't already have her escape route planned. Linda scoffed. You're a petty man. I smiled. And she's a dishonest woman. Isn't it wonderful when labels finally match behavior? Claire stormed in then. Eyes red, hair disheveled. She wasn't collapsing yet, but the cracks were visible. Mom, Dad, don't talk to him, she snapped. He's trying to ruin everything. I held up the binder like a holy text. Everything is already ruined. I'm just filing the obituary. Her parents turned on her like sharks sniffing blood. Questions, tension, doubt. She wasn't prepared for an audience. She only performed well when she controlled the narrative. But now the narrative was printed. Her father, voice shaking, asked, Claire, did you really do this? She looked at me, then at them, then at the documents. And for the first time, the truth didn't have anywhere to run. I didn't think he'd find out, she whispered. It wasn't remorse. It was regret of being caught. Harold sat down, stunned. Linda's face paled. Suddenly, the golden daughter of medicine looked less like a victory and more like a liability. And Claire knew it. She spun toward me, voice sharp. If you do this, you'll destroy me. No, I replied, calm as stone. You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights. Her parents didn't defend her this time. Silence stretched, long enough for fear to settle in her eyes. Good. Fear sharpens truth. She backed away, shaking her head. You can't win. I stepped closer, not threatening, just present. I already did, I said. The moment you assumed I wouldn't fight back. Her breath hitched, not because she believed I was dangerous, but because she finally understood I wasn't weak. Weak men are predictable. Broken men are chaotic. But reborn men? They're inevitable. As her parents left, I noticed something in Claire's posture. Not arrogance, not superiority, but calculation. She wasn't giving up. She was plotting. Good. I was done reacting to her plans. Now, she would react to mine, because there was still one final piece she didn't know. I hadn't pressed send on anything yet. I wanted her scared. I wanted her aware. And most of all, I wanted her present for the finale. I always imagined endings were loud. Doors slamming, glasses shattering, someone screaming blame into the void. Turns out, real endings arrive the same way betrayal does. Quietly, with paperwork, with truth, with consequences no apology can outrun. 2 days after Claire's parents left my house in stunned silence, I received an email from the university. The tone was corporate polished, but unmistakably panicked. Mr. Miller, we would appreciate any documentation regarding your concerns about Dr. Hartman's educational funding. Translation, they smelled fire and were checking if the house was already burning. I didn't reply. Not yet. Let them sweat. Meanwhile, Claire tried everything she had left in her arsenal, her last, dying attempts to reclaim control. She texted, "We can talk this out. Be reasonable. Then, you can't do this to me. Then, I made mistakes, but you're being vindictive. Then, finally, the real Claire. Don't you dare ruin me. I earned everything I have." I didn't respond, because men like me don't ruin people like her. The truth does. The breaking point came the next morning. Claire showed up again. No makeup, hair messy, dressed like someone who finally understood the floor beneath her wasn't stable anymore. She didn't knock. She barged in like she always had, entitled, certain I still lived in the cage she built. "Ethan," she gasped, as if running from war. "Ryan is freaking out. He said you called some lawyer. Did you tell him about the loan? He's threatening to leave if this becomes a legal issue. You need to fix this." I stared at her. "The man you replaced me with," I said slowly, "isn't willing to go down with you." She swallowed. "Hard. He didn't sign anything. You did." "I didn't," I corrected. "You did. Using my name." She closed her eyes. "I needed a future. You had one," I said. "You just didn't want it with me." She opened her eyes again, wide, pleading, "We can fix this. Please." There was not love, not remorse. Self-preservation dressed as reconciliation. I stepped closer, holding the binder. She reached for it like it was oxygen. I pulled it away. "Claire," I said softly, "you didn't just betray me. You buried me. You stood in front of a room full of people, pointed at another man, and erased my existence." Her lip trembled. I didn't think it mattered. It mattered to me. Silence. Heavy. Finally honest. "You enjoyed watching me drown," I continued, "because you believed once you reached the surface, no one would remember the body at the bottom." She looked up, eyes wet. "Please, Ethan, I can't lose everything." I inhaled, then exhaled the last piece of her I'd ever hold. "You already did." Her knees buckled. She sat on the couch, shaking, not crying for me, crying for herself, for a future turning to ash in her hands. I walked to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and clicked send. One email went to the university, another to the Department of Education, a third to the State Medical Board, each one containing proof. Not emotion, not anger, evidence. Claire's breath hitched like she'd been shot. "What did you do?" she whispered. I closed the laptop slowly, deliberately. I told the truth. She shook her head, devastated. Not because she loved me, but because she never imagined I would love myself enough to stop her. "You'll destroy my career," she said weakly. "No," I replied. "You destroyed your own career. I just stopped cleaning up after you." Our marriage didn't end with a fight. It ended with accountability, a language she never learned. 3 weeks later, I received a letter confirming the investigation. Her medical license was put on hold pending review. The condo she rented was no longer in her name. Ryan had vanished. Her parents stopped calling. Claire finally experienced what she'd tried to gift me. Silence. Not peace. Isolation. The absence of applause she lived for. People ask me now, friends, co-workers, strangers, whether revenge felt good. It didn't. It felt necessary. Therapeutic. Like taking a bone that healed wrong and breaking it again so it could finally set straight. I don't hate Claire. Hate would mean she still occupies space inside me. What I have now is better. Clarity. A future unshackled from the weight of someone else's ambitions. And if anyone ever asks me for advice, I give them the lesson Claire paid for. Love isn't proven by sacrifice. It's proven by who stays when the sacrifices are over. And now I stay with myself. The one person she never expected me to choose. The end.